Yo, what's up guys, my name's Hacky, and the greatest handling cars in GTA Online come from all types of different classes, makes for great all-around vehicles to drive around, beginning with the most stable supercar there is by far, the LM87. It's almost like this thing is glued to the ground. The traction it has is absolutely amazing. It's really easy to use, rarely ever spins out. It's literally difficult to get this thing to spin out. As long as you're on road, it's actually hard to mess up like that, even around turns. One of the most expensive supercars there are, but at the same time, it's one of the best performing supercars. There's lots to like about this car. For one thing, it's very unique in the sense that it only has one seat in it. It's actually a one-seater supercar. The only seat is just in the middle of the car and not on the left side. That's something super unique about it that you rarely ever see with any type of car. I also really like the customization of it. You can choose between some cool liveries and a lot of really cool spoilers too. That is hands down the most grippy supercar in the game. Highly recommend you get that one if you have the money. Then transitioning from a great handling supercar to a great handling sports car. The Italy GTO is my go-to sports car for races, and although it's not the #1 fastest sports car there is, it's got the best balance between speed and handling. It's easier to drive around than, let's say, the Pariah or the Italy RSX, but some people prefer to get those cars instead because they're faster but a little more difficult to use. So that all comes down to personal preference, whether you like the more speed or better handling and a little less good speed. I just feel like the chances of spinning out around turns with the Italy GTO is much lower than, let's say, with the Pariah or the RSX. Absolutely love the Italy GTO. It's even better performing than a lot of supercars in the game, so that says a lot. Definitely get your hands on that super grippy sports car if you can. Moving on to the grippiest possible vehicle in the entire game. This whole class is super grippy, so not only this current vehicle, the F1 car, specifically the BR8, is almost impossible to spin out with on road. Naturally, F1 cars are much grippier than your typical cars, so it does make sense, but I mean, these are still amazing handling vehicles. You kind of gotta get used to it just because they act a bit differently than a typical car, but when turning, you don't have to hesitate whatsoever because there's no chance of it spinning out. This goes for all 4 F1 cars we have in the game, but the BR8 is just the best out of them. I also really like the speed boost you have with it, so not only is it legit glued to the ground, but you can also go even faster if you press down on the left stick on your controller. You'll get a cool looking effect on your screen. That's how you know you activated it. And to recharge it, I believe you just need to let go of the gas button, give it like 10 or 20 seconds, and then it recharges fully. On top of that, it also has some really cool customization, a lot of really unique spoiler options. Obviously, spoilers are gonna be very different than other cars because this is F1 cars. The BR8 has a couple, but mainly the R88 and the PR4, they have a lot of really cool looking spoilers. I love those ones. And all of the F1 cars have some really unique looking liveries as well. Love the liveries. And another really unique customization option is the front wing, which you can make look completely different. Overall, awesome cars to get a hold of, just a bit pricey, in the few millions range. Lucky for you, now we surprisingly have more of a budget-friendly option on this list that has some crazy good handling. The Camacho is easily one of the best off-road vehicles out there, and if I had to describe it in one word, I would describe it as stable. It is such a stable vehicle, both on and off-road. It is fantastically performing for the off-road class. I'd almost say it's kind of unrealistic how stable the vehicle is, considering it's such a big truck. It's my go-to for off-road races, and there's tons of customization with this thing. For an off-road vehicle, this has so much customization. It's one of the most customizable non-Benny's vehicles in the entire game. A lot of really unique customization options like the doors, the truck bed, the roof, some cool liveries, and some really cool hood options too. It's very difficult to find something to complain about with this vehicle, especially since it comes in at under 350,000 bucks. That's super cheap. This Camacho is hands down one of the best value vehicles you can get in the game, so definitely recommend it. The Benefactor Krieger comes in next as another amazing handling supercar, and it's actually my go-to for supercar races over the LM87 that we talked about earlier. At this point, it's been in the game for a good couple years, and I'd still say it's one of the, if not the best supercar to use. Despite not being as glued to the ground as the LM87, I still think the Krieger has some amazing handling. It's easy and comfortable to control. It has crazy good acceleration, and top speed is also great. It's the best you can ask for in terms of performance. The only thing it lacks a little bit is in customization, and it's not extremely customizable. Definitely not, let's say, say like the Camacho. But if you're buying this car for the steep price of just under 2.9 million, you're buying it for the performance and less for customization. Then we have a dramatically cheaper price with the Night Shark. This is actually the only weaponized vehicle we're going to talk about in this video, and for a price tag of about 1.25 million bucks, it's actually pretty worth the price. It's both explosive resistant and bullet resistant with the window plating that you can equip on it. It takes a couple of rockets to fully blow it up, and then tons of homing missiles since they're technically a little bit weaker than RPG rockets. So it's a very safe vehicle to roam around in, definitely the safest on this list. And surprisingly, for it being a relatively heavy vehicle, it's got some great handling and speed. I can't say exactly, but I want to say it's one of the fastest armored vehicles that don't have a rocket boost. Both a good top speed and going around turns, I don't find myself spinning out with this thing too often, if ever. And it doesn't have the most powerful minigun on the front of it, but it's still nice to have, and the sound of it is also pretty satisfying. And so both an armored and weaponized vehicle in one. Next up is going to be the Vector that came out in the Auto Shop update. Now it's actually in two different car classes, which is really rare to see in GTA Online. It's both in the sports class and the tuners class, which is the Auto Shop one. So you can use it in two different kinds of races, which is cool. It does have some decent grip. You will find yourself drifting a bit, but it's more of a controllable drift. It's not really spinning out. Some cars in the game are a bit more drifty, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad or they have bad handling, because if you know how to control the drift, then it's actually a pretty easy to use car. Plus it's fun. A lot of people like to drift in GTA Online. Good customization on a nice looking car like this one. Comes in at 1.3 million, which is not terribly overpriced. It's also not super cheap as well, so it's kind of in the middle of the pack when it comes to the price on this list. Then we have another off-road vehicle, which is a relatively new one, the Terminus. Now this is as good, if not a little better than the Camacho overall when it comes to amazing customization and great performance. If you're on a tighter budget, definitely go for the Camacho, but the Terminus is definitely a lot more high-end and it's way more expensive. It's a modern day Jeep, so it kind of makes sense for Rockstar to make it super expensive, and when this thing came out, it blew everybody away just because everyone was so focused on the Gauntlet Interceptor police car, which is the one everyone was looking at, but then the Terminus came out at the same time, and so it kind of flew under the radar. But I definitely recommend you get it if you didn't pay too much attention to it in the first place. It's a bit less stable and more springy, if that makes sense, than the Camacho. Kind of gives it a more realistic feeling, honestly. The Camacho just feels like a super overpowered toy sometimes. And solely based on looks, if you're wondering which I think looks better out of the two, I think the modern day Jeep Terminus is a little bit nicer. They both have roughly the same amount of amazing customization, a lot of unique options once again. And are there any vehicles you think I should have included in this video that I didn't? Let me know down below in those comments. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it and subscribe if you are new with the notification bell turned on. Click the video on screen now for the most overpriced vehicles in GTA Online. I hope y'all enjoy that video, and peace.